The air was crisp that October evening, the kind of autumn chill that makes you pull your sweater a little tighter. The leaves had just started to turn, painting the backyard in soft oranges and reds, and the smell of roasted chestnuts drifted from the kitchen. It was our family's annual fall gathering at my parents' house, a tradition that stretched back to when I was a kid. The table was crowded with mismatched chairs, plates piled high with mashed potatoes and green beans, and the hum of conversation filled the room. My son, Ethan, was running around with his cousins, his laughter cutting through the low murmur of adult voices. He was 6, all skinny legs and wild energy, his dark hair falling into his eyes as he darted past. I watched him, my heart swelling, but there was a weight in my chest I couldn't shake. They were all there. My parents, my sister Claire, her husband Tom, my aunts and uncles, cousins I hadn't seen in months. Everyone was smiling, passing dishes, telling stories about old times. But I felt it, the way I always did at these gatherings. The glances, the whispers that stopped when I walked into the room. The way my mother's smile tightened when she looked at me, like she was holding back something she didn't want to say. I'd been a single mom for 3 years now, since Ethan's dad left. It wasn't my choice, but it was my reality. And every time we got together like this, I could feel their judgment, heavy as the autumn fog settling over the yard. She's doing her best, I heard my Aunt Linda say to my mom earlier that day, her voice low, but not low enough. But it's too much for her. You can see it in her eyes. She's not cut out for this. I was in the hallway, carrying a stack of plates to the kitchen, and I froze. My hands tightened around the ceramic edges, and I felt my throat close up. Too weak. That's what they thought of me. That's what they'd always thought. I'm Sarah, by the way, 32 years old, a part-time receptionist at a dentist's office, raising Ethan in a small apartment with creaky floors and a leaky faucet I keep meaning to fix. I'm not the kind of person who stands out in a crowd. I'm quiet, maybe too quiet sometimes, always trying to keep things together. Bills, school lunches, Ethan's soccer practices. But no matter how hard I tried, it never felt like enough. Not for them, not for my family. That night, after Ethan had worn himself out and fallen asleep on the couch, I slipped into the kitchen to help clean up. The house was quieter now, the kids tucked away, the adults lingering over coffee and pie. I was scrubbing a pot when I heard it, Claire's voice, sharp and hushed, coming from the dining room. She's going to fail soon, Mom. You know it. Ethan deserves better than that. I stopped, the sponge still in my hand, water dripping onto the counter. My heart thudded in my chest, loud enough that I was sure they'd hear it. I leaned closer to the doorway, holding my breath. She's trying, my mom said, her voice softer, but there was no conviction in it. But it's true. She's too weak to do this alone. She always has been. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. My own mother, my own sister. The words cut deeper than I could have imagined, slicing through the fragile confidence I'd been trying to build. I wanted to walk in there, to say something, to defend myself. But my feet wouldn't move. My voice wouldn't come. Instead, I stood there, silent, the sponge trembling in my hand. The rest of the night passed in a blur. I smiled when I was supposed to, laughed at my uncle's bad jokes, hugged everyone goodbye. But inside, I was unraveling. When Ethan and I got home, I tucked him into bed, brushing his hair back from his forehead. He looked so small, so peaceful, and I wondered if they were right. Was I failing him? Was I too weak? The next few weeks were heavy. I went through the motions: work, school drop-offs, bedtime stories. But those words kept echoing in my head. Too weak. Too weak. I started noticing things I hadn't before. The way Ethan's shoes were wearing thin at the toes. The way he'd stopped asking for new toys, like he knew we couldn't afford them. The way he'd look at me sometimes, his big brown eyes searching mine, like he was trying to figure out if I was okay. Then, one evening, something shifted. It was a Thursday, just a regular night. I was making spaghetti in our tiny kitchen, the radio playing softly in the background. Ethan was at the table, coloring, his tongue poking out as he focused on a picture of a dinosaur. His backpack was on the floor, unzipped, and I noticed his phone peeking out from the side pocket. He wasn't supposed to have it at school, but I let it slide sometimes. It was an old hand-me-down from Claire, barely functional, but he loved it. "Ethan, you left your phone out again," I said, reaching for it to tuck it away. He looked up, his face suddenly pale. "Mom, don't." I froze, my hand hovering over the phone. "What's wrong, buddy?" He didn't answer, just stared at me with those wide eyes. Something in his expression sent a chill down my spine. I picked up the phone, and he lunged forward, trying to grab it. "Mom, please, it's nothing." But it wasn't nothing. The screen was unlocked, and there was a text thread open. It was from Claire, my sister. I scrolled up, my heart pounding, and saw the messages. "Tell me what your mom does all day," one said. "Does she seem tired? Sad?" Another, "You're such a good boy, Ethan. You're helping us make sure you're okay." And then, the one that made my stomach drop. "If she's not taking care of you, we can take you to live with us. You'd like that, right?" I looked at Ethan, who was staring at the floor, his small hands clenched into fists. "Ethan," I said, my voice shaking. "What is this?" He didn't want to talk at first. He just sat there, his shoulders hunched, like he was carrying a weight too big for his little body. But slowly, it came out. Claire had been texting him for weeks, asking questions about me, about how I was doing, if I was crying, if I was forgetting things. She'd told him it was because she loved him, because she wanted to make sure he was safe. But to me, it felt like something else. It felt like she was building a case, like she was waiting for me to fall apart so she could take him. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the couch, the phone still in my hand, reading and rereading those messages. The betrayal was sharp, like a knife between my ribs. My own sister, the one who'd held my hand when Ethan was born, who'd promised to always be there. She didn't think I was enough for my own son. The next morning, I called in sick to work. I needed time to think, to figure out what to do. I dropped Ethan off at school, watching him walk through the gates, his backpack slung over one shoulder. He'd been quiet all morning, and I knew he felt guilty, like he'd done something wrong. I wanted to tell him it wasn't his fault, but the words stuck in my throat. That afternoon, I drove to Claire's house. It wasn't planned. I didn't call ahead. I just got in the car and went, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. When I pulled into her driveway, I saw her through the window, folding laundry in her perfect living room, her perfect life. She and Tom had 2 kids, a big house, a golden retriever. Everything I didn't have. She opened the door, surprised to see me. "Sarah, what's going on? Is Ethan okay?" I didn't sit down when she offered me a seat. I stood in her living room, my arms crossed, the phone burning a hole in my pocket. "Why are you texting my son behind my back?" I asked, my voice low but steady. Her face changed just for a second. A flicker of something. Guilt, maybe, or fear. "What are you talking about?" she said, but her voice was too quick, too defensive. "Don't," I said. "I saw the messages, Claire. You're asking him to spy on me. You're telling him he might be better off with you." She opened her mouth, then closed it. For a moment, we just stood there, the silence stretching between us. Then she sighed, her shoulders slumping. "Sarah, I'm worried about you. We all are. You're struggling. Ethan's a great kid, but he needs stability. I was just trying to..." "Trying to what?" I cut her off, my voice sharper now. "Trying to take him away from me? Because you think I'm too weak?" She flinched, and I saw it, the truth in her eyes. She didn't deny it. She didn't say anything at all, and that silence was louder than any words she could have spoken. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just looked at her, my sister, the person I'd trusted most in the world, and I felt something break inside me. Not anger, not exactly. It was deeper than that. It was the realization that the people who were supposed to love me didn't believe in me. "I'm his mother," I said finally. "And I'm not failing him. I'm not perfect, but I'm doing everything I can. And you don't get to decide what's best for him. Not you, not Mom, not anyone." I turned and walked out, my heart pounding, my hands shaking. I drove home, and when I got there, I sat on the couch and cried for the first time in months. Not because I was weak, but because I was tired. Tired of carrying everyone's doubts. Tired of proving myself. Tired of feeling like I was always one step away from falling apart. That night, when Ethan came home, I sat him down. I looked into his big, worried eyes and told him the truth. Not about Claire, not about the betrayal, but about us. "You and me, buddy," I said, holding his hands. "We're a team. I'm not perfect, and I'm going to mess up sometimes. But I love you more than anything, and I'm always going to be here for you. Okay?" He nodded, his eyes filling with tears, and he hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. "I don't want to live with Aunt Claire," he whispered. "I want to stay with you." That was the moment I knew I wasn't weak. I was strong enough for him. The next few months were different. I stopped going to family gatherings. Not out of anger, but because I needed space. I needed to figure out who I was without their voices in my head. I started small, fixing the leaky faucet, signing Ethan up for art classes because he loved to draw, saving a little each month for new shoes. I started talking to a therapist, someone who listened without judgment, who helped me see that my strength wasn't in being perfect, but in showing up every day, no matter how hard it was. One spring afternoon, I was at the park with Ethan, watching him climb the monkey bars when my phone buzzed. It was a text from my mom. "Can we talk?" it said. I stared at it for a long time before replying. We met at a coffee shop a few days later, just the two of us. She looked older, her eyes tired, and for the first time, I saw something I hadn't before: regret. "I was wrong," she said, her voice soft. "I didn't see how strong you are. I didn't give you a chance. I'm so sorry, Sarah." I didn't forgive her right away. I couldn't. But I listened, and over time, we started to rebuild. Not the way things were, but something new, something honest. Claire and I haven't spoken much since that day in her living room, but I don't hate her. I think she thought she was doing the right thing, in her own way. Maybe one day we'll find our way back to each other. Maybe not. But Ethan and I, we're okay. We're more than okay. We have our little apartment. our routines, our inside jokes. He draws me pictures of dinosaurs, and I stick them on the fridge. I'm still learning, still growing, still figuring out how to be the mom he deserves. But I know now that I'm enough. Not because I'm perfect, but because I'm his. And that's all he's ever needed.